of the Fulton County Board of Registrations and Elections. I'm Alex Wan, I'm chair of the board. Before we can call this meeting to order, however, we need to perform the swearing in of all of the members. I'm going to ask the Honorable Kathleen or Ms. Tina Robinson, the clerk of the court, to please come forward to administer our oath.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. Those of you who are taking your oaths, would you please stand and raise your right hand? I know you have a lot of business to take care of, so we want to make sure that you can get to your business. And both oaths are pretty long, so if you'll be patient with me. The first oath is the official oath, and if you would please repeat after me. I, in your name, do swear or affirm that I will, as a member of the Board of Elections, duly attend all ensuing primaries and elections, during the continuance thereof, that I will, to the best of my ability, prevent any fraud, deceit, or abuse in carrying on the same, and that I will make a true and perfect return of such primaries and elections, and that I will at all times truly, impartially, and faithfully perform my duties in accordance with Georgia laws to the best of my judgment and ability. I do further solemnly swear or affirm that I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public money due this state or any political subdivision or authority thereof, or any public subdivision or authority thereof, that I am not the holder of any office of trust under the government of the United States, any other state, or any foreign state, which I am prohibited from holding by the laws of the state of Georgia, that I am otherwise qualified to hold said office according to the Constitution of the United States and laws of Georgia, and that I will support the constitutions of the United States and of this state. So help me God. Okay, if you would please sign your official oaths, and then we will move on to the loyalty oath. Okay, we're ready? All right, okay. I, and your name, a citizen of Fulton County, and being an employee of Fulton County, and the recipient of public funds, oh, you can't hear it, okay. And the recipient of public funds for services rendered as such employee, do hereby solemnly swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Georgia. So help me God. All right, if you would sign your loyalty oaths, please. And we will take them back to the office, get them adjudicated, and get them back to you. And thank you all for your service, and have a great meeting.
All right, thank you very much, and congratulations to all of my fellow colleagues on the board. Before I call this meeting to order, I would actually, not to put you on the spot, but would like to welcome Ms. Crawford as a new member of this board. And I want to just give you a minute if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself before we get underway with our business.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Terry Crawford. My formal name is Teresa Crawford, so I go by Terry. I am lived here in Georgia since 2007. I have 4 daughters, 4 grandchildren, and a husband that keep me all busy. So I'm very happy to be nominated to be on this committee, this board. I've been on several boards before. The biggest one is a Board of Education in New York. So I know how boards work, and I'm really interested in helping further Fulton County's elections to get better and more productive. So thank you very much, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Ms. Crawford. We look forward to working with you and diving into the subject matter at hand. So while I'm doing this, also let me introduce the rest of our board members. To my far left is Dr. Kathleen Ruth. To my immediate right is Mr. Mark Wingate, and to his right is Mr. Aaron Johnson. With that, we constitute a quorum. This meeting is officially called to order, and I finally have a gavel. All right, so a couple of things while we are now back in person physically with our meetings. I want to remind everybody that cell phones are to be turned off during the meeting, please. And then, okay, first item on the agenda is the actual approval of the agenda. Are there any comments, additions, or changes to the proposed agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I propose that we approve the agenda today for the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections, July 8th, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate. There's a motion. Seconded by Mr. Johnson. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. The agenda is approved. Next item is communications and public response. I'll remind everybody that citizens are allowed to voice requests, concerns, opinions, etc. during this section of the meeting of the Board of Registration and Elections. Before speaking, each participant must obtain a speaker's card from Ms. Mariska Bodison, fill out the card and return it to her prior to the meeting, and speakers are granted up to 2 minutes each. I have 2 cards before me. The first one is Ms. Amy Uphughes, I believe hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And I welcome you to the podium to make your comments.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Amy Uphughes, and I have been a resident and voter of Fulton County since 2011. And I would like to voice my strong opposition to the renewing of the contract with Happy Faces temp agencies to run our elections. There are several reasons for this. The election workers should be local stakeholders in the community where the election is held, not a paid temp agency. And who are these people from Happy Faces the temp agency hires? What are their qualifications? We've all seen the video of Ruby Freeman and her daughter at the State Farm Arena and various other videos she posted online mishandling the mail-in ballots. We're still awaiting an investigation and accountability for the numerous irregularities in the 2020 election. The citizens of Fulton County should return to having our residents work the early voting, polling, and all aspects of the voting process. We should not pay a temp agency from another county to run our elections. Happy Faces temp agency is headquartered in Tucker, Georgia, which is a DeKalb county. The only connection Happy Faces has to Fulton County is a financial link to Stacey Abrams as a secretary through the Now account, a foreign profit corporation. This is unacceptable. What would be your response if Brian Kemp or another political candidate
return
had
to
the
having our
slightest hint of a
residents
financial
work the
interest
early voting
in the
polling
polling
and
or
all
counting our
aspects of the
votes?
voting process?
You must
We should
return
not pay
voter
a temp
integrity
agency
and
from another
impartiality
county to run our elections.
to Fulton County
Happy
elections.
Faces Temp
The
Agency
corruption
is
in Fulton
headquartered
County
in Tucker,
elections
Georgia,
warrants an investigation,
which is a
and
DeKalb
that
county.
starts with not renewing
The only
Happy Faces
connection
Temp
to Happy
Agency's
Faces
contract
has to Fulton
or
County
any
is
other
a temp
financial
agency.
link.
We, the people of
Stacey
Fulton
Abrams
County,
as a
demand an
secretary through the
investigation
now
and
account,
accountability
a
into the
for-profit
irregularities
corporation.
and
This
fraud
is
in our
unacceptable.
elections.
What would
You
be your
serve
response
the
if Brian
citizens
Kemp
of Fulton
or
County.
another political
You've been
candidate
entrusted
had
to
the
having
slightest
our
hint of
residents
financial
work the
interest
early
in our
voting
elections,
and the polling
have
and
failed
all
on our
aspects of the
votes.
voting process.
You can
must
start
return
not pay
voter
attention
integrity
to voter
from another
impartiality
county to run our
citizens of
elections.
Fulton County by not
Happy
renewing
Faces
Happy
Temp
Faces
Agency
the corruption in Fulton County
Tucker,
elections
Georgia,
warrants an
for 7.7
investigation,
which is a
and
DeKalb
that
county.
starts with not renewing
The only
Happy
connection
Faces
to
Temp
Happy
Agency's
Faces
contract
Temp
or any other financial
Agency.
link.
We, the people of
Stacey
Fulton
Abrams
County,
as a
demand an
secretary through the now
investigation
and accountability
a
into the
for-profit
irregularities
corporation.
and fraud
This is
in our
unacceptable.
elections. What would
You
be your
serve
response
the
if Brian
citizens
Kemp
of Fulton
or another
County.
political
You've been
candidate
entrusted
had
to
the
having
slightest
our
hint of
residents
financial
work the
interest
early
in our
voting
elections,
and the polling
have
and
failed
all
on our
aspects of the
votes.
voting process.
You can
must
start
return
not pay
voter
attention
integrity
to voter
from another
impartiality
county to run our
citizens of
elections.
Fulton County by
And
not
Happy
renewing
Faces
Happy
Temp
Faces
Agency
the corruption in Fulton County elections
Georgia,
warrants an investigation,
which is a
and
DeKalb
that
county.
starts with not renewing
The only
Happy
connection
Faces
to
Temp
Happy
Agency's
Faces
contract
Temp
or any other financial link.
We, the people of
Stacey
Fulton
Abrams
County,
as a
demand an
secretary through the
investigation
now and
and
accountability
The
into
level of
irregularities
election
and
mismanagement
fraud
is
in our
unacceptable.
elections.
Shocking.
What would be
You
your
serve
response
the
if Brian
citizens
Kemp
of Fulton
or another
County.
political
You've
been
candidate
entrusted
had
to
the
having
slightest
our
hint of
residents
financial
work the
interest
early
in our
voting
elections,
and polling and
have
all
failed on our
aspects of the
votes.
voting process.
You must start
return
not pay
voter
attention
integrity
to voter
from another
impartiality
county.
citizens of
The
Fulton
first
County by
aspect
not
of
Happy
renewing
Faces
fire.
Temp
the
Agency
corruption in Fulton County elections warrants an
Second,
investigation,
which is a
and
DeKalb
that
county.
starts with not renewing
The only
Happy
connection
Faces
to
Temp
Happy
Agency's
Faces
contract
Temp
or any other
Agency
financial link.
Stacey
Stacey Abrams as a secretary through the now and accountability
The
into
level of
irregularities
election
and
actually want to F stuff up, end quote. It is no wonder Happy Faces is currently named in the lawsuit to inspect the Fulton County ballots. This is not misinformation. In the May Commissioners meeting, Barron said he didn't know how Happy Faces recruited. Fulton Elections was not involved. Really? Shouldn't we know? Or does Barron know? I do know that thousands of Election Day workers like me are not recruited, nor is there an effort to recruit them. Actually, I have tried to work, and I can't get a call back from Happy Faces. Does Happy Faces intentionally hire unqualified and untrained staff? Do they hire friends and family of Fulton Elections employees? Does Stacey Abrams' Now account, who holds the purse strings to Happy Faces, have influence who Happy Faces hires? Do you board members have influence to get who gets hired? Mr. Johnson, do you have influence for Nakima Williams when you work for an elected official? Does Barron want to rely on Happy Faces because he can replace them in 24 hours? So if it raises concerns like me, they're gone. Poof.
Ms. Thorne, I'm going to
Canceled.
ask you to wrap your comments up, please, or 2 minutes.
You don't have to hire full-time employees. Why not pay a daily stipend for early voting poll workers like Election Day poll workers? Why not offer training classes for existing poll workers to be certified as poll techs?
Ms. Thorne, your time is up. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still missing my 400 absentee ballots, too.
Thank you, Ms. Thorne. All right, are there any other folks here who were here to speak but did not give Ms. Bodison a speaker's card? All right, if not, that concludes item 2 on our agenda. We'll now move on to old business. The first item is approval of the minutes. Colleagues, in your board packet, you have the minutes from the regular meeting on June 17th, 2021. Are there any comments, corrections on those, or is there a motion to approve them as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I have just a few questions that I will bring up during the operations report concerning these minutes. I'm not objecting to the minutes, just that there's some follow-up there in my mind that I just saw in the past 24 hours and getting the information that just needs to be addressed because they're open issues.
Excellent, yes.
But in the meantime, I will move to, well, we can wait, but we can make a motion to approve these minutes.
Okay, there's now a motion on the floor. Is there a second? And I believe that Ms. Crawford.
I second.
Okay, Ms. Crawford seconds the motion. Did you have a question or comment on them?
No, not on the minutes.
Okay. Colleagues, any other further discussion on the minutes, noting that Mr. Wingate will have some follow-up questions during the operations report on items contained therein? Okay, if not, then we'll enter a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. The next item is the executive session meeting minutes from June 17th. I emailed that to everybody. Mr. Crawford, I did not send those to you because you were not in that. But we can discuss that afterwards. It was just kind of this awkward straddling of terms.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion from Mr. Johnson to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Ruth.
Quick comment
Yes,
to that.
Mr.
We
Wingate.
do have from that executive session a couple of items that need to be followed up on, and I'm not sure because I haven't heard when that plan would be to do that.
I believe we are actually, we'll be potentially going into executive session again today to discuss litigation, and that would probably be the appropriate time to bring those items up. All right, there is a motion before us and it's properly seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, colleagues. Item 4 on the agenda is monthly operations report for June 2021. Mr. Barron, I'll turn this over to you to walk us through this, and then we'll hear from your directors as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see everyone back here in person. We have been sending the municipalities' office build surveys and resolutions to the Center for Election Systems at the Secretary of State. Those we still have, we're awaiting language for either 2 or 3 questions from some of the municipalities to send over to them so they can finish building those ballots. Qualification will be, for some of those cities, for the candidates, will be upcoming. We gave you guys last month the polling place changes that you'll be considering today, both for early voting, to approve early voting locations, as well as to change or add some election day locations. We will have our initial meeting today with WDS, with the inventory management system that was purchased with grant funds and approved, and we have that. That system is now active, and then we will be working on that to get everything inventoried by the end of August. We are revising all of the advanced voting training to include all of the SB 202 procedural changes, and we are doing the same for Election Day. We have been making changes to the Election Day based on poll manager roundtable, as well as SB 202 changes. And we continue, staff continues to attend SOS forums, which are, and they update us with their interpretations of all the procedural changes in those meetings. We are going to rewrap the mobile voting units and take off the Vote Here logo that's on those, and that should be happening at some point this summer so that we can use it for voter education. With regard to, I sent another memo yesterday with regard to where we're at. We had a long meeting yesterday with Human Resources. Their Human Resources Director was briefed. I believe it was a meeting with the state, and there will be a new, it will be called a full-time limited term staff that will be allowed. And those staff, the only thing we'll have to do is pay them medical benefits. And so next year, anybody that works more than 6 months, so probably that'll be over 200 people, I think, that we'll have to hire. We will have to bring them on because they'll be probably with us for about 11 months next year. The county will have to take on medical benefits for those staff. All of the other staff, which would be early voting and our couriers, some of the people in the warehouse that work a short amount of time, they would be considered seasonal if they're 6 months or less, and we wouldn't have to go that route. Now, for this year, we're already about, if the Board of Commissioners approves Happy Faces next week, we can get people on board for the remainder of the year. We still owe Happy Faces $350,000. If we get them on, if they are approved next week, we'll use them for the remainder of the year and then explore that other option for next year. If that item on the agenda isn't approved, we'll have to go the human resources route, which Felicia Strong-Whitaker, the Director of Purchasing, is also looking at other agencies. Some of those agencies, if indicated in the past, they don't have the capability of filling all these slots. And so we would have to probably use multiple agencies, and we wouldn't be able to get anything approved for a secondary agency until sometime in August, which is too late. Human Resources, because now we're within the 6 months to the end of the year, we can hire everyone seasonally that we would need for the remainder of the year. The issue is just the time it's going to take, because Human Resources said they will commit 12 people to help us interview, but the staff is going to have to be involved in interviewing for approximately 435 to 440 positions between now and the middle of August to get everyone on by September. Their early voting training was scheduled to begin towards the end of July, and then Election Day training would begin in early August. So there are some positions where we will have vacancies, and we're going to get behind by 4 to 6 weeks in some aspects. But if the Happy Faces agenda item fails, because it's been now, I think next week it'll be 8 weeks since we first put that on the agenda. But with the meeting we had with Human Resources yesterday was encouraging. They've already drafted the positions for us, so that in case that falls through, we have a backup. And it's just going to take some time to get everyone on board. But since they're seasonal, they're not going to have to go through orientation, which is usually a 2-day process. And we may do group interviews, and if we do these group interviews, that we can probably bring them on and hire people directly the day that they're interviewed, and then get them on board quicker. So hopefully we can, with some of these processes, we'll get everyone on by the middle of August. I think the early voting workers, and I know, Mark, you mentioned getting 100. That, of course, that's going to help getting the early voting workers lined up. But I think doing group interviews, and we talked with Human Resources yesterday about doing 30 at a time. We might be able to get through all the early voting candidates in 1 to 2 days. So that's good news with regard to what I guess was going to be our plan C. Plan B, we kind of skipped over. That would be getting more temp agencies. So I think we should be okay for November, because I think we got some pretty encouraging news yesterday.
Mr. Barron, before you move on that, I'm sure we all have a lot of questions. I know Mr. Wingate does, but I just want to recap what I believe I heard you say. So right now we are moving forward with our option A, which is Happy Faces contract come up before the Board of Commissioners on Wednesday. If that does not pass, our second path is working with HR on these seasonal full-time limited staff positions, essentially bringing them on for the balance of the year in each of those positions. And then our third option, which is not, doesn't sound particularly feasible, is that if for some reason that does not work, and I want to come back to that in a second, then the third option is piecemealing together other temp agencies to somewhat recreate, using multiple sources, what Happy Face would have done in one fell swoop. But the problem with that is timing, is that we would not be able to really get those contracts and that arrangement before the Board of Commissioners before August, which means that's just no runway for November, correct?
Yeah, and there are also a couple of legal things,
Okay.
issues on that I discussed that I'd rather talk about in executive session.
So going back to
We do
Plan
that.
B, though, we have not yet put together what the financial implications of that are. If there is a delta between bringing them on, even as seasonal, notwithstanding if the 6 months plus 1 day, we got to start paying medical. But is there a significant financial delta between A and B?
I think since we don't have to pay, Human Resources, yesterday, Kenneth Herman directed one of his staff members to come up with those costs, but I think they're going to be similar.
Okay.
Because we don't have to pay, since we're, I guess, outside of that 6 months, nobody will work. Well, you know what, some of them have already worked this year, so we might have to pay benefits to them. And that wasn't brought up in the meeting yesterday. So we might have to make medical benefits for the rest of the year, which would mean we'll have to go back and do a soundings request to the commissioners.
Okay.
I need to get with
And the
Human
second,
Resources after this meeting then.
the operational challenge with the Plan B is the interviewing and recruitment process. But you said that HR said that they would be stepping up. It sounds like that's where, if per Mr. Wingate's offer last meeting, if the parties could help with recruiting candidates as well, that might help make that more feasible. All right, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
and there are some things with supplemental questions on the applications where we'll be able to filter people much quicker too and get them in.
Okay, I just want to make sure we have an alignment here of what our paths are going forward. I'm sure my colleagues have questions. I know Mr. Wingate does, and then I don't know if anybody else does after that.
Yes, Director. I guess the question, depending on where all of this ends up, is the onboarding process. That's where this really hits the road. Let me reiterate that the Fulton County Republican Party certainly wants to onboard as many that go through the process and qualify as possible. And that is upheld through the laws of the state of Georgia in terms of that activity. So my assumption is that you'll know, or everybody will know sometime on July 14th, what the BOC does. So
Yes.
I'll say this theoretically, then we could start in motion on the 15th of July, because you're really running up against the clock to do all of this.
Yeah, we'll still have to post all the positions. Then those are posted, there's the recruitment process, and then we can start the interviews.
And let me just make sure it's clear, what our group have been doing is recruiting for early voting. There will probably be some election day activity there that can be used if that makes sense. If not, then we can go from there. But with that, what I'm hearing you say is now that those folks that'll work roughly that 3-week period, maybe 4 weeks, and depending on runoff, which we assume there probably will be, that would then have some extension to those needs. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, I would say it's probably with training, it's 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay. But even if we add that on, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard you just explain, these folks will be considered seasonal.
Yes.
So there is not going to be a requirement on a county taxpayers to pay for benefits. Is that a true statement?
For early voting workers, there shouldn't be, no. I think for some of our staff, now I think we're going to have to pay benefits for a number of individuals.
But some of the poll worker varieties that I'm speaking of,
Right.
probably not.
No.
Now, let's say, for instance, that the BOC, in their wisdom, decides to retain Happy Faces, at least for an extended period of time to get by this election. The people that we would bring forward then would be onboarded through the process at Happy Faces. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, here's the issue in my mind, that in doing that, if Happy Faces onboards them, then is it correct to say that then they're actually then employees of Happy Faces?
Yes.
So there is a built-in cost over and above for benefits.
Yes, they have a fee that they charge on top of the hourly rate.
But that fee includes benefits. And would they include those benefits for these so-called seasonal employees?
It depends on how long they work. I don't know when they start paying benefits to staff.
I think we just need to check that out because, again, that's a financial consideration, Mr. Wan, that you were bringing up that needs to be addressed.
They have to, okay.
You know, I'm not contending anything. I'm just suggesting that if a staffing agency is used, then we just need to make sure that the rate, which I won't get into the numbers, I've done some of my own calculations on what Happy Face personnel have cost us on a per-hour basis, is extraordinary. Let's just, if we've got a way to put 100, 150 people into positions, people who want to actually go in here and be involved, that we find a way to do that.
Well, whenever we send names to Happy Faces all the time, and they put them on the priority list. And we actually, when we send names, we get a reduction in the fee that they charge us as well.
Good. All I'm suggesting is all of those things need to be known so that we're doing this as not only as effectively as we can, but as financially efficient as we can. So, I guess, who will alert the board as to that decision? Because for one, I don't
On next Wednesday?
spend all day long listening to the BOC stuff.
On next Wednesday? Is that what, yeah.
That's their meeting date, right?
Yes.
So you could alert us so that we can do a call to action, or at least, we can,
Yes.
start the process in motion because you're going to be working with a limited number of days as we've discerned here.
Yes.
Okay. All right, fair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate. Questions from my other colleagues? Mr. Johnson? Yep, sorry.
So to follow up on something that Mr. Wingate was saying, I thought the whole purpose of using, and I'm not sold on Happy Faces, don't get me wrong, I mean just a temporary agency, period, is there's a cost benefit that we get. It's cheaper for us to use the temporary agency than it is for us to hire them directly, correct?
Yes, but there is this seasonal category will allow us to get away with paying any benefits for this year. For certain workers. Anybody that's been with us this year, whether they've worked in the office or the warehouse, we'll end up having to pay them benefits for the remainder of the year if they go that route. And that's where it gets more costly because I think, what's the percentage, Brenda? Do you know, for benefits that they add on? Yeah, it's about 17%. And then on top of that, then there's unemployment that the county would have to pay out, which is also expensive. So
all that will be included in your calculations on
that is going to,
the difference between, now I'm not arguing for seasonal but I just want to be clear that I understand. I thought the whole purpose of using a temporary agency is because the Board of Commissioners didn't want to take on that number of people for extended amount of time. Now with this addition of being seasonal, that gives them the benefit of not having to keep people for more than 6 months, pay benefits, all that other good stuff. But at the same time, there will be a percentage of those people that will still have to fall into that category because they've worked other parts of the year.
Yes. So
Okay.
there will be, the courier's early voting workers should come in under the 6 months.
Okay, all right.
There will be another classification that will have to pay benefits to, but the limited term full-time, that will allow the county to only, we can't get around the Affordable Care Act. So they will have to pay them medical benefits, but we aren't going to have to pay them sick. We're going to have to do sick time or vacation or retirement, those other benefits.
What about
All right.
workman's comp? Is that
I would
included in
think
that?
workman's comp is I mean, I don't think they can get away with that, right? Yeah, I don't know.
All right, so I want to go back to what my original question was about. I've gotten a couple of phone calls. Apparently, the letter went out to the mayors last week sometime, so a couple of mayors have called, and city council members have reached out asking me, are we trying to throw the elections on them? And of course, I explained to them that was not the case. But I noticed that when you were talking about your options, it's no longer an option to give it to the cities to do their own elections, or at least unless something catastrophic happens between now and, say, I don't know what your drop dead date is, do we still have the option, or are still operating on the option of allowing the cities or having the cities do their own elections?
I think after yesterday, I don't believe that there is a scenario. It's just that we are going to be behind.
The 8 ball the whole time.
Yeah, I would say we're going to be at least 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks behind where we want to be at this point.
Okay.
So, but, you know, I think we'll be okay with it. It's
And
just going to be a compressed time period.
But we're still, I know some of the mayors across the county, I don't know which ones, but I do know some of the mayors are going to be talking to the commissioners to make a decision one way or the other next week, so we won't be in limbo, so you can move forward with whatever you want to do. But also, have you had an opportunity to talk to the commissioners who have issues, or even the commissioners that weren't here during the votes?
Not yet, but I plan to do that, yes.
Have you reached out to them, or?
No, I did send a memo yesterday. I worked with Cheryl on something that went to their chiefs of staff and to all the commissioners, so. But, no, I plan on following up on that.
Tomorrow will be a great day to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I think Ms. Crawford and then Dr. Ruth. I did want to point out, though, to your point, though, we still, if we go I'll call it permanent staffing, even though it's seasonal, but that's essentially what we're doing versus temporary staffing. We could potentially still have to go before the board of commissioners if the financial delta warrants it, right? So there is one more hook to that could then throw it back to the doomsday option or scenario.
Yeah, I guess if they, because I think depending on the number of people, and I'm guessing it's probably in the 80 to 100 person range, we're probably going to have to pay medical benefits for the remainder of the year for those individuals.
So that one is, there's still one more step of approval that we would need. So, all right, Ms. Crawford, then Dr. Ruth.
I just have one question. Do we have a cost analysis for each plan?
That is what Human Resources is working on that. After our meeting yesterday, Kenneth Herman, who's the director, directed one of his staff to do that. So we should have that before the BOC meeting next Wednesday.
Okay, and you'll distribute that to us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Well, along those lines, can you just present both plans to the BOC next week with the cost analysis?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have to give them that cost analysis. But the agenda.
I'm hearing not. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, the agenda item deals specifically with Happy Faces. So I think to a certain extent, I can't go up and alter the item at this point, but in the presentation, there will be a discussion of the costs that are different.
Okay, so, but you can present both cost analysis of
Yes.
Plan A and Plan B.
Right. Yeah, I can't add a separate item to present the other plan.
Could they vote, the BOC vote on whether or not they accept, you know, each one of those plans?
Well,
So that they're not just voting on necessarily happy faces?
if they vote down the Happy Faces agenda item, we're just going to default to human resources.
Yeah, so there's only two options at this point, and I think Dr. Ruth's point is simply that the commissioners need to have the information before them because it's an either or at this point.
Exactly.
Right.
If, versus doing it sequentially, like, okay, oh, you're not going to accept this, and next meeting we'll come back and present the next plan. It's like, no, you got to decide today, and by default, if you don't approve this, then we're in.
We're going to have to go to an internal county process. If they turn down that item, we will just, Human Resources is ready to go forward.
Yeah.
But the issue, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
The issue that I don't know that this body understands is that there is a whole nother mechanism that the Board of Commissioners goes through if there is a funding issue. And that would have to be a separate item. They would have to do a soundings to augment your budget if in fact there is an issue with the funding. They can't do that in one fell swoop. That item is not yet on their agenda and they can't just take it out.
And
It would have
also,
to be
but we
something.
have funding right now. We would just have to go back and whatever the change in funding would be, we would go back at a future meeting and ask for that difference.
Real quickly to jump into that, then, what's the disposition of the $350K that's still owed to Happy Faces?
Right, exactly.
That is
So you're
something,
going to have to, you're obviously, if Happy Faces is what's chosen going forward, then you're going to have to deal with that, I assume.
if the item is passed, then we'll be able to cut a check to them right away. Because it's in the not to exceed spending authority for the year. So right now, we're unable to pay that because the not to exceed spending authority has not been approved. And
the
so,
CTC
Brenda,
and the CTCL funds were lost effective the June 30th, correct?
yes, but I think we spent all of them, but how much? It was like $400? The CTCL, how much of the CTC? Okay, yeah, we spent almost all the 10.7 million, but about 15,000.
Dr. Ruth, you still have the floor to,
I'm fine right now.
but he brings up a good point, though. If Happy Faces contract is not approved, what happens to the balance due to Happy Faces? Has that been discussed either with us or with the Board of Commissioners? Is that something we can discuss here, or do we need to go in executive? Is that in executive session? Executive session? Okay. All right. Add that to the list. Yes, Mr. Wingate.
Sorry to take up all this time. I have one quick question. Let me state from the last meeting, Sharon did a great job in providing a written job description of the needs for early voting personnel. The hourly rate that you had, Sharon, attached to each of those, is that based on Happy Faces contract pricing? Is that where that number comes from? The hourly rates for each of the three positions? I just, I think through this, I'm just unclear as to, the gauge, of setting those particular pay rates.
The hourly rate came from Fulton County, where they want to establish the hourly rate for the EV clerk to EV manager and the assistant. So whatever hourly rate that Happy Faces have came from us and what was in the budget.
Then from Happy Faces as a baseline. Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions on this particular topic around the options going forward, or the different scenarios going forward with the temp services? Okay, if not, Mr. Barron, if you'll proceed with your report.
And I've got to voter registration, so what I want to do too is introduce Shamira Marshall, who's the registration manager. She's back there next to Ms. Benjamin. Shamira worked for us for several years and then went to Clayton County and worked for our former registration chief, Shauna, and now she's back with us as registration manager.
Good morning, board. My name is Shamira Marshall. I'm happy to be here, and I am currently being baptized by the fire. I'm no stranger to elections. As Mr. Barron stated, I was a permanent staff for 6 years prior to my leaving. I was not gone long, and now I have returned. So I look forward to working with you all.
We have received 47,709 voter registration applications in 2021, 8,511 total applications in June. We have 857,612 registered voters, with 36,862 of those inactive. And you can see by the historical numbers that we are definitely back to the pre-DDS opt-out days, or that we're back to the for whatever reason, I don't think we've ever received an explanation from the state, have we, Ralph? We've asked numerous times. We don't know why the numbers have dropped so significantly, but we're definitely way down. Back starting in February 2016, DDS had changed to an opt-out policy, and for all that we know, that is back in place. We just don't know. We don't have any felon hearings scheduled for today. We sent out 79 letters this month. Ralph will be conducting interviews for 2 open positions in voter registration the first week of August. And we have received 3 cities' voter files, unless that's been updated since the meeting.
Yes, that has been updated. We've received 5 now so far.
Okay, so we are waiting. They have until July 16th to audit their voter file and get it back to us. That's next Friday. No activity for 2 general elections.
Mr. Barron, Mr.
Yes.
Wendy had a question.
Chief Jones, who, I think I saw, who are, can you just name the 5 now that's responded to you, please?
Chat Hills, Johns Creek, Sandy Springs, Alpharetta, and it's one more. I mistakenly forgotten the 5th, but it is one more.
Only 3 of them were in at the time of the report. So we have the no activity for 2 general elections is going to be run soon. If a voter, as there's an example in the operations report, is inactive as of July 1st, 2017, and then decided against voting in the remainder of 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, they are going to be rounded up in this mailing. The state will generate a list. We'll send out the mailing. They will have 40 days to return the form. Anyone that fails to make contact with us, they will be canceled from the voter rolls, and that process will be done this summer. There was a recall petition that that we processed for the City of Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and there were 93 valid signatures on that we returned to the City of Atlanta. With regard to, we have received 11 of 13 municipal contracts, and they will be presented at the August meeting, August BRE meeting, and then we'll move on to the Board of Commissioners meeting for their approval as well. And that is it for now, if you guys have any other questions. Oh, and as far as the audit, the draft report of the county auditor is underway. They are still asking for a couple things here and there, but they are drafting that report as well.
Any questions from my colleagues? Ms. Crawford.
Mr. Barron, on the registration division, and I know that our numbers are down considerably, but on your breakdown in the back, it only has 7 people moving out of Fulton County in June. It seems kind of low.
The moved out of state number,
Moved
you
out
said,
of state, yeah, moved out of state.
is 7. Though there were some elections that were happening, so those wouldn't have been processed, correct? Or?
No, the reason why that number is so low is that most of the information that we get for people who moved out of the county comes from the Secretary of State. And
So it's bad.
so that the state actually delivers those people to us, those voters to us. And that's what we receive from the Secretary of State at that particular time.
Okay, just curious, it just seemed like a very low number, so. As it always, okay, all right.
Ms. Crawford,
Sorry,
that
it's a new
number is
question, so.
usually, that number is usually less than 10.
Is it usually, okay,
Yes.
okay, all right. Thank you for filling me in, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Wingate.
Chief Jones, have we heard yet from the SOS when they will conduct their activities with the NCOA?
Verbally, I was told that they're trying to look at August to start doing the NCOA. He didn't tell me late August or early August, but they're trying to set it up for August.
Do you know
I
when
had
they're
one other
running
quick
in June?
question of Mr. Eskridge. In our last meeting, Mr. Eskridge, you were to get back to me regarding the issue of a liaison into the outreach group, and I have yet to hear from you.
I apologize. I thought we were going to discuss it at this meeting, so I apologize for the
No,
delay.
don't apologize. Just
But
let me know
there
when
was
we
no
can talk.
objection to it, so I would just need you to provide that contact name and information to us. But we would also request, of course, each party provide a liaison or to fulfill that role.
Thank you.
Ms. Crawford, please.
So do I just get your information and have a person contact you?
Yes, ma'am. Or if you would like, just provide me the name and information and we'll
Okay.
reach out.
All right, perfect. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Ruth, sorry.
Yes, and as it relates to the voter list maintenance effort by the SOS, you're expecting to get that list or by the end of July? Is that right, or?
Let me make sure I understand. There are multiple things. You're talking about the NOAC 2GE. They've already generated a preliminary list of people who will be qualified to be on the NOAC 2GE, they just call it NGE. So we have a subset of people to send out these notices. It has not been finalized to a point whereby the notices have been sent out. Before they are going to be removed, we have to receive those particular people, and at that time, I'm assuming the state will give us a final list of people who are going to be sent out a confirmation to validate, do they still want to be registered in Fulton County?
Okay, and approximately how many people were on that? Do you know?
I think it was 15,000.
15,000. And as far as staffing, how many staff do you have allocated?
Well, for us, all we have to do is mail them.
Okay.
Once we mail them, it's the return of the 15,000, and usually, majority of the time, it's less than 10% of the information that comes back in.
Okay, great, thank you.
Other
So
questions?
just to be clear, Ralph, we get 10% of them back. Those are the people that are making contact. The remainder, if we don't enter anything, the 10% that we enter, the remainder are just, they're moved to cancellation.
That is correct.
For that clarification. I had some questions about poll worker training, election day workers, but Mr. Wan, if you want to ask your questions.
Well, no, I was going to say, we still need to go through the administration operations piece of it.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
So we can cover those during that section. Any other questions on the registrations piece?
Oh, and I moved on to, I moved.
Oh, you already did cover all that?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
then I missed this conversation. So, yeah, questions then. Dr. Ruth, why don't you go ahead and proceed with those?
Okay, so thank you for the post-election plan assessment, and you have here a number of items related to poll worker staffing in your timeline. And so as it relates to some of this, it says that it's completed. Where can we find those plans?
The plan,
For-
to what are you referring?
So develop the communications plan for poll worker recruitment, develop poll worker assignment process. This is on
Those are in
page
the
2 of the monthly
Achieve It.
report.
Oh, okay. These, anything that's completed should be uploaded in the Achieve It. And if it's not, we'll get it uploaded in there. Those attachments, we've been working with the strategy office to get those uploaded into it. And we sent, I think Mariska sent a link to
Yeah, so I was able to access Achieve It, but I wasn't able to see the plans in that.
Let me get with Mr. Frady and we'll make sure that everything is uploaded, that the attachments are uploaded in there.
And would you have to revise some of this now, given what's going to happen next week with Happy Faces or not?
It is going to affect our schedules for sure. It's also it is affecting the recruitment of poll workers at this point. It is affecting, that's the big part of it. It's going to affect training. We're going to have to completely revise the training schedule, and we're going to be behind on recruiting for, not only for early voting, but for Election Day as well.
And then the next thing I wanted to ask is around the schedule. So there's also the LNA, logic and accuracy testing. It would be really helpful to have all of that, the schedule, and so that people know what's open to the public, and that is an activity that is open to the public.
Yes, and I think that's scheduled to begin September 27th, if I'm remember. Yeah, September 27th, I believe, is when LNA starts. And we do post that that schedule before LNA begins as well.
Okay.
So we'll make sure to have that on the website too.
Questions? Thank you. All right, Ms. Crawford, got a question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, other questions or comments from my colleagues? Mr. Mayor, did any of your other chiefs have anything that they wanted to add terms of report, that monthly activity report?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you, colleagues. That concludes this section of the old business. That moves us now into new business. Item number 5, the first item is election of vice chairperson. If you'll remember, we do change this out every year. And Mr. Wingate, I believe you have a motion to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, given this particular year is the Republican term, I submit Dr. Kathleen Ruth as our vice chair for this coming term.
All right, there's a motion before us to nominating Dr. Kathleen Ruth as the vice chair for this year. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Johnson. Comments, questions, or discussion? Ms. Crawford, anything? No. All right, that motion is before us and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
The ayes clearly have it.
Right, any abstentions? So congratulations and condolences. No, I'm kidding. So, all right, so Madam Vice Chair, we welcome you into this position and expect great things from you. All right, next item, number 6, External Affairs Communication Update. I see Ms. Corbett out there. If you will come to the podium and provide your report, please.
I'm still getting used to our fancy equipment here in Assembly Hall. And welcome to the freshly renovated Assembly Hall. We were really excited to have this space, and I hope you're enjoying your more comfortable seating that we certainly have been. I did not prepare slides for today, and I will explain in a moment kind of where we are with the communication update. I think this year is, we're continuing to, I think, deal with some of the challenges that 2020 brought us with elections and in government operations in general. There is still, I get calls almost every week from reporters who are following up on issues that came about in 2020. And so we are kind of, though, at a place where we have to pivot and focus on the future. And what we have prepared, and we're kind of in a planning stage of the communications for the 2021 elections. And Dr. Booth made this request of us. This was a follow-up to the discussion we had about voter education and public information about the changes brought forward by SB 202. And so we have really developed 3 messages that support that and are really tied to the 3 ways to vote. The first of those is, of course, encouraging voters to vote early. And part of where we are in planning is today you will be approving the early voting locations. And so that is a very important and kind of the cornerstone of our messaging, because if a person votes early, which is how most Fulton County voters have chosen to cast their ballots in the last several years, the effects of SB 202 or any other changes in polling places and all these other issues do not affect that voter, because they have plenty of opportunities to resolve an issue. If they have one, their chances of voting on a provisional ballot are much more limited. They can't go to the wrong place. And the biggest changes in SB 202 are really affecting voting by mail. So that is still, we recommend, is the best option for voters, and it's one that our voters have expressed a preference for. And because of the very generous support of having a lot of early voting locations, that has been feasible. The issue of staffing is really directly relevant to that, because if we were to have to make an adjustment in staffing, that could affect the availability of the expansive early voting that Fulton County has had in the past. So that's one of the things we're very anxiously monitoring. But I think that all of you and the Board of Commissioners and everyone I'm aware of is still very fully committed to ensuring that Fulton County has a very robust early voting program. The second is vote by mail, and that is where the biggest changes in SB 202 come into play. And there are two messages for voters there. One is to communicate to them the timeline, and one is to communicate to them how they return their ballots. So those are two of the pieces that you'll see as we kind of are developing the collateral that supports this plan. And then, of course, the third, as we've talked about in every election for years, but is now even more important, is to know before you go. If you vote on election day, there are consequences to voters who go to the wrong precinct on election day that are brought about via SB 202. If you go before 5 o'clock to the wrong precinct and you vote on a provisional ballot, that ballot will not count. So that is why it's so much more important for that voter to know exactly where they go if they did not vote early. So these three, we've tried to embed the messages to align with the ways to vote. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we have planned in terms of delivering the messages directly to the voters. We have been very fortunate to have a really strong digital communication approach. So we've already begun the work of updating the election website and removing content that is now outdated. For example, the mobile voting schedule. We won't have that this year. The Dropbox locations, that is going to be very different as well. So those kinds of content that we already know are not going to be relevant, we're just going ahead and clearing the decks. But what we will be communicating is what to do. So again, once these early voting locations are confirmed, the dates and times for the absentee ballot process, those are part of the FultonElections.com, our social media, as well as the Fulton Votes app that I think all of you are familiar with that we launched last year. And then we will also be doing a direct mail piece, which we did last year, which was very successful. Again, our goal is to communicate wherever possible directly with the voter. So I think this helps us, regardless of a political persuasion. I'm trying to be very careful about how I say this. There's a lot of misinformation in the world, from across the political spectrum. I'm not trying to blame any one party or organization or group, but we deal with a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of talk about the infodemic that we've experienced since the beginning of COVID. There's a lot of social science behind that, but we feel like when we can communicate facts directly to the voter, that we can kind of cut through some of the clutter and get that, empower people with information, which is really what we're all about. And then the third piece is advertising. We've worked with the elections team to develop a modest advertising budget that, again, will communicate those key dates and facts. Where do you go? What do you do? So how many early voting locations do we have? There is the most important fact about the vote by mail is the fact that the deadline is much earlier. So that's going to be part of that communication as well. So those are kind of the kind of core elements of that. We are, as I mentioned, in the planning phase. We're monitoring how does the staffing come out, how does the early voting schedule look like. So those pieces will be plugged into the next phase into production, where we start to actually develop all the collateral that we would love to bring back to you, some drafts at our next meeting, and be able to show you some of our work. And then we anticipate starting to really be in market in September. So we're out a good month before early voting begins, and really getting that information delivered directly to the voter. Excuse me. In addition to some of those pieces I've just talked about, we have been collaborating with Patrick and the team, and Johnny, talking about supporting the voter education teams, again, as they kind of come on board. Also in discussion about poll worker recruitment, and we've had a lot of really robust communication about that. We've also been, our graphics team has been working on developing a kind of rebrand of poll worker training as Poll Worker University to try to elevate that experience for the voters, or excuse me, for the poll workers, and to really support the changes, to signal some of the changes that poll workers will see this year. Because again, behind the scenes, while the voter experience will be similar for many voters, the poll worker experience, there are a lot of additional regulations that have changed that they need to be aware of. Observer rules, there's a lot that poll workers will need to know. So this rebranding of that experience will kind of signal some of those changes. We have always enjoyed our collaboration with the team, and we'll continue to do that. I will follow up. Dr. Ruth, thank you for calling that out about the that communication plan that was not in Achieve It. We'll make sure that that gets updated. And I also, Regina Waller from our team is here. I believe Donnie is also here, who's a new member of our team. So we're here to support, and if there's any questions, I'm glad to answer those.
All right, questions from my colleagues.
Excuse me.
Dr. Ruth, please.
Well, just a comment. Thank you so much, Ms. Corbett, for all your hard work on this. And I really do like the 3 points, the 3 principles that the communication approach is taking. There's one thing I would like for you to consider, and that is there's this buzzword we've all talked about and have heard throughout the election cycle, integrity. And so allowing citizens to see places where they can observe, so being a poll watcher or observing the logic and accuracy testing, so that can be a list of events, a calendar of events for that.
That's a great suggestion. And I do think that that the public is more aware of elections and the things that happen behind the scenes than they may have been in the past. And I think that's a great opportunity to demystify the process, which I hope will further help address misinformation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Crawford?
I think that, hi, it's nice to meet you.
Hi, very nice to meet you.
I'll meet you later. I think maybe that just building on what like Dr. Ruth said, that the communication around what we're doing as far as training goes and what people are allowed to see would be good to also get out into the press besides just our website.
Yes, I think that's a great suggestion. I didn't really talk about the media relations piece of our communications, and we do, there is an entire press corps in Atlanta, and actually we now have a pretty strong following in national press as well, who are frankly focused on Fulton County elections. And so we definitely want to build in some briefings, give as much opportunity as we can to let our press corps see behind the scenes and see the hard work that goes into supporting an election. It's a very complex process. It takes thousands of people, thousands of pieces of equipment, a lot of regulation. And so that's something they've expressed an interest in, and I think that is a great opportunity, and we'll be glad to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I've got a couple of them. Number one is, I agree with Dr. Ruth. I like the way that you really kind of put these in buckets because that helps everyone wrap their head around focus what we're trying to do. Couple of suggestions. Number one is I think, especially with the changes with SB 202, think of it from the lens of what can't you do the same anymore this year? Because that's where I think voters will get confused or potentially tripped up a little bit. You mentioned the dates on early ballot, early voting, or I'm sorry, mail, vote by mail things. I think, as well as the ID requirement. I don't think you mentioned that. As well as the not being able to vote out of precinct. So I just feel like human nature, folks tend to sit up a little bit more when you realize, oh, I used to do that, and I can't do it anymore, versus, oh, here's what you can do. The other thing, too, is you mentioned a lot of digital assets and digital channels.
Yes.
I would also, think about not all of our voters in Fulton County have digital access.
Sure.
I think we learned that through the education system last summer, but I also think that that is something we should think about as well. You mentioned direct mail, and that's obviously one way to do it, but the downside of that is, as we are seeing even with the municipal elections, the city of Atlanta elections, there's going to be a lot of clutter. And so we either need to think about timing or how we stand up and above, and as a former candidate, I know, I mean, we'd love to send mail. So
Yes.
just
Oh, yeah,
let's
we'll
not
get a
lost
big old
in that.
stack.
Yeah.
Yes,
and-
that's a great point.
I think we should also think about two other tools. One is, I know the city of Atlanta has done a lot in terms of phone robocalls, which, again, there'll be a lot of noise, but then texts as well. So those platforms tend to reach folks well, and it's just an easy way. And then finally, if there are infrastructures that we can piggyback on in terms of in-person, example, again, I come from the city of Atlanta lens, so I'm going to use these examples a lot, but the MPU meetings, a lot of the folks that don't have digital access will go to those. And so just let's cover all our bases, because the last thing I think we want is come, 4 days, 5 days before the election, when, options have started closing.
Right.
All of a sudden, there's an uproar from folks who, can't vote the way they used to, and that way we can at least go in that comfortably knowing that we've done everything we can.
I think that's a great idea, and if I could respond really quickly, one of the, I guess one blessing and curse of this is that our team has been very, very engaged and are continuing to be right now on vaccines and closing the vaccination gap in Fulton County, where the effects of health disparities have become very clear, unfortunately. And because of that, we are in the community perhaps more than ever in some ways. So there are a lot of opportunities, again, as we're kind of sorting through some of the staffing issues we talked about, there's some really great opportunities for us to collaborate together and be co-located with some of those events. So we will sharpen our pencils a little bit more, but thank you all for all you do. Congratulations, Dr. Ruth, on your appointment as vice chair. Very, very well deserved. And we will see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. If there's no other comments on that section, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, approval of the 24 early voting locations.
Good morning, board.
Good morning.
We have a list of 28 early voting location, and I believe in the last meeting, you was given this list to review. But I do have one change. Higher Museum of Art is in pending status. They have not made a decision yet if they're gonna conduct the election for us in October. Higher Museum of Art. The backup will be Government Center.
Other questions or comments from my colleagues on this? I assume you do need an approval motion or action from us, is that correct?
Yes, please. I need you to choose 24.
Second.
All right, there's a motion from Mr. Johnson, properly seconded by Mr. Wingate, to approve the advanced voting locations and hours as presented.
Well, those are 28. So if we choosing 24, and if you have not made a decision on the 24, then I'd like to recommend we remove College Park Library. Right now, the list is 28.
Yeah, the list is, did you say 24? Oh, you said 24.
The list is 28, and your job is to choose 24.
We have to choose. Okay, I thought
Yes.
the recommendation was before us.
We're gonna get all 28. I'm so excited. Okay, it said 24, and then I saw it said 28.
Okay, all right, so we have,
Yes. And I could make some recommendation for you, and we could start from there. College Park Library.
Okay.
Welcome All.
what was that? Next one?
Welcome All Recreation
Oh,
Center.
Welcome All, okay.
Johns Creek Environmental Campus. and Government Center.
The Fulton County Government Center?
Correct. Fulton County Government Center.
But it's not listed.
/ High Museum of Arts.
Oh, one of those two, okay.
Yes.
So it's 28 listed on here. We
Yes,
can
it
only do
is.
24.
Yes.
These are the 4 that she's suggesting. Welcome Mall, College Park, Johns Creek.
And High Museum.
Right now, the High Museum is listed, but they haven't confirmed yet. So if we cut them off, they don't need to confirm.
Correct.
And the Government Center. But the Government Center is a place that you could drop your ballots off anyway.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
So all 3 yellows, if you came, even though, well, Government Center is the only one, well, no. South Fulton doesn't, neither one of them have a drop box, but you can just drop it off.
Yes.
Okay,
There's
cool.
staff there, yeah, to receive it.
You can give it to a
Yeah.
staff person.
Where did we, in our conversation last meeting, there were kind of first choice, alternate choice for, I believe, the northern, I'm sorry?
You mean for the drop boxes or the?
I just remember, how did that end up getting resolved from last meeting? I mean, remember, we had like a plan, and then if the commissioners didn't agree, we were gonna go to Plan B. Whatever happened?
Right, we gave new maps in your packet, so we did put Alpharetta Library as a Dropbox location, and we also did C.T. Martin, that was recommended. So all the recommendations were put into the locations.
Okay, all right, so it sounds like staff's recommendation, as Mr. Johnson said, is we would, from this list of 28 to get us to 24, we're removing College Park Library, High Museum of Art, Johns Creek Environmental Campus, and Welcome All Recreation Center.
Yes.
All right, that's what is before us. Is there any discussion, and then is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve that scenario.
Okay. All right, there's a
For
motion
discussion.
from Mr. Johnson. I need a second.
A second.
Seconded by Ms. Crawford. Okay, we have comments from Ms. Crawford and then Mr. Wingate. Did you have a comment? Okay, all right, Mr. Wingate, please.
Given that this is a munis election, do we need 2 Saturdays and 2 Sundays?
We don't have to. It's up to the board if you want to have both Saturdays and both Sundays. Usually, for municipal elections, we'll do usually one Saturday, and sometimes we add a Sunday to it.
What we have right now, maybe I've miscounted, I guess, we've got 21 total days for early voting.
Should be, I think it's 19 total, but isn't it? Or is it?
Starting the 12th of October, running to the 29th, well, okay, I probably got the weekends in there too, so how many days was it, Director?
19, it is, yeah.
19.
So
Yeah, if
15.
we run them all both weekends, it's
it's
19 days.
16, 17, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, correct.
But that's proposed. I mean, for this type of election, we've also run one Saturday before. So, but I would recommend that we do a Saturday and a Sunday, at least one.
At least one Saturday and one Sunday.
Yeah, or both Saturdays.
I'm with Mr. Johnson here. I you thought you said that inside your head, right? I think this municipal election for City of Atlanta is going to be very active. I mean, we know that the number of candidates that are running in different races, it's not a typical midterm, and I do think there is going to be carryover effect from what happened in 2020. I think we would do ourselves a disservice to not be over-prepared for it rather than under-prepared. Given our experience, I feel like I said, for that logic, I would say let's do the extra. No, I wouldn't say extra days, but the 2 and 2. Yes, Ms. Crawford.
I agree, because I also think that with the changes, this will give everyone 2 extra days to vote early. And I think that we're going to see the early vote turnout even in this municipal hire.
Mr. Johnson.
And since you're already agreeing with me, I'm going to agree with you. But I'm thinking about not only, and I appreciate your comment, Ms. Crawford, about the confusion during the elections this year. It's going to cause more people to get greater opportunity. So I believe there's going to be a greater push to get people out. But not only that, we're going to have an unprecedented, I don't want to say unprecedented election in Atlanta, but we're going to have a very large election in the city of Atlanta. But not only in the city of Atlanta, there are several other cities that have mayoral elections that's going to cause a great push. And I think they're going to be pretty considerable elections, not just your normal mayors running for re-election or mayors running for election. They're going to be tight races, so they're trying to get as many people out as possible. So I think we should go with it.
All right, other comments? So, Mr. Johnson, I believe you have the motion on the floor that was seconded, so I'm assuming your motion preserves the schedule as presented.
Correct.
Okay. Any other further discussion on that motion? Again, the adjustments, the four that are being struck. All right, if not, then let's go ahead and move into the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Yeah, and
All
we
right.
do have that holiday on October 11th, so it's 18 days rather than, yeah.
Well, the 11th. So the 11th is actually a Monday? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we start early voting on Tuesday, the 12th. Okay.
And I just have a question about the Dropbox. So CT Martin, it has the Dropbox there right now. Okay.
Yes, it will have a Dropbox.
They will have one. We removed all 38 drop boxes, but we will have 8, but they have to be located inside the early voting sites.
Okay, great. But they're not there now?
No.
All right, other.
Real quickly, will you provide us then the updated list?
That's
Sure,
great.
thank you.
Yes,
Great
I will.
suggestion. Okay, thank you. That concludes item number 7 and takes us to item number 8, approval of polling place changes. Mr. Farron, who and your staff will walk us through this section, please.
Nadine's going to take this item.
All right. Good morning, Chairman and members of the board, and welcome aboard, Ms. Crawford. We are requesting poll place changes and precinct splits in an effort to reduce the number of voters assigned to precinct locations. By reducing the number of voters assigned to facilities, we are attempting to reduce voter wait time should voters choose to vote in person on election day. All relocations have been surveyed for handicap accessibility. The proposed changes have been advertised in the legal organ with the reason for the change noted. Upon approval, all voters affected will be notified via postal mail.
Questions or comments? Mr. Wingate, and I have one as well.
As a point of information, as we've done this several times before, are we required to go through each one of these individually? I'm looking for the sake of time.
I have to refer to legal for that. I'm not sure if that
We have
Yes,
to go
it's
through
our-
them individually?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But we can, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, you can go through all of them, and then we can vote on all of them at the same time.
That's correct.
So we don't have to vote on individually.
Okay. Proposal 1.21, precinct PA01 for Palmetto Library. Per the city of Palmetto, they have requested that the city of Palmetto conduct a municipal election at Palmetto City Hall. The county election will remain at Palmetto Library. So the change is to have this municipal election at Palmetto City Hall per the city's request. Proposal 221, precinct 08J, to decrease the number of voters assigned to Sutton Middle School. Precinct 08J will be relocated to Northside Church. Precinct 08H will remain at Sutton Middle. Proposal 3.21, precincts 02F 1 and 2. Pond City Market was unable to accommodate since they have leased the voting area. So we are proposing to relocate to the church on Ponson Highland. Proposal 4.21, precinct 08C for Chastain Park Gymnasium to decrease the number of voters assigned to this facility. Precinct 08C will be relocated to Sutton Middle sixth grade campus, and precinct 08B will remain at Chastain Park Gymnasium. For proposal 521, we actually are rescinding that proposal. We were advised by the upcoming facility that they cannot accommodate the runoff, so we will be removing that from the proposal list today. Proposal 5.21 for Morris Brandon Primary, Agape is unavailable for the runoff, so we will be removing that proposal. Precinct 6.21, I'm sorry, proposal 6.21, precinct 08B, Chastain Park. We have been advised that there is an address change for Chastain Park, so it's the updated address information. Proposal 8.21, precinct 02A1, the Historic Academy of Medicine cannot accommodate due to staff shortages, and we're requesting to relocate to All Saints Episcopal Church. Proposal 9.21, precinct 02L12 and 03I for Georgia Tech McKimmish Pavilion. There is an event conflict, and so we are requesting to relocate to the Georgia Tech First Center. Proposal 10.21, precincts 06L1 and 06L2, to decrease the number of voters assigned to the facility, which is Peachtree Christian Church. We are asking to relocate these precincts to Christ Church Presbyterian, but precinct 02W and 03F will remain at Peachtree Christian Church. Proposal 11.21 for precinct FCO1, House Bill 445 has a boundary change for the city of South Fulton. Precinct FCO1 will be relabeled SC31, and there will be no change to the polling location. For proposal 12.21, precinct FCO2, House Bill 445, by annexation of the I-20 Fulton County Airport area is still, a portion of FCO2 is still Fulton County property and will remain FCO2. The area below I-20 is now part of the city of South Fulton and will be relabeled SC32, and there'll be no change to the polling location. Proposal 13.21, precinct FCO3. House Bill 445 is a boundary line change for the city of South Fulton. Precinct FCO3 will be relabeled to precinct SC33. There'll be no change to the polling location. Proposal 14.21, precinct 07A for Sarah Rawson Smith School. We want to decrease the number of voters assigned to this facility. A split will be created for 07A1 will be created and relocated to Peachtree Road United Methodist. The unaffected portion of 07A will remain at Sarah Rawson Smith School. For proposal 15.21, precinct 07D as in David, Buckhead Library will decrease the number of voters assigned to this facility. Split 07D1 will be created and relocated to Peachtree Road United Methodist. The other portion of 07D will remain at Buckhead Library. Proposal 16.21, precinct 10D as in David, CT Martin Recreation Center to decrease the number of voters assigned to this facility. Split 10D1 will be created and relocated to Harper Archer Elementary School. The other portion of 10D will remain at CT Martin Recreation Center. Proposal 17.21, precinct 12A for Metropolitan Library to decrease the number of voters assigned to the facility. We will split precinct 12A to precinct 12A and 12A1. We will merge 12A1 to the existing 12A1 at Sylvan Middle. The 12A will remain at Metropolitan Library. Proposal 18.21, precinct 06D, Morningside Baptist Gymnasium to decrease the number of voters assigned to the facility. We will split precinct 06D to 06D and 06D2 and merge 06D2 to the existing 06D2 at Haygood Memorial United Methodist Church. And this proposal is actually pending. The church is considering if they're going to actually remain as a polling site. They had some changes to the trustees and they were going to let us know, but we wanted to propose it today just in case. Precinct 20.1, we actually want to delay that change to the August meeting, if that's okay. We want to give the city of Roswell a chance to look over that proposal. So we're moving that from the list today. And finally, proposal 21.1, precinct SC 16A, to decrease the number of voters assigned to Sandtown Park Gym. We were going to split for SC 16B will be created and relocated to Sandtown Middle. The portion of SC 16A will remain at Sandtown Park Gymnasium. And that concludes the proposals we're presenting today.
So just to make sure I've got this correct, you are removing 5.21 as well as 20.21 from this list?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed polling changes minus 5.21 and 20.21.
All right, there's a motion from Mr. Johnson.
I have
I'm
one
sorry.
question. I just wanted to verify, what about proposal 22.21?
Oh, okay, maybe.
I'm sorry, my microphone's blinking. We don't have to ask the city of Roswell for permission. We just wanted to present that to them before we make the change for 20.21.
I have a 22.21.
22?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. That one was, I'm sorry, you must have the old spreadsheet. We removed that one. We are not presenting that today.
Sorry for interrupting.
No problem.
Okay, hold on a second. Time out.
She has one, you're speaking of Butler Street and J.D. Sims Recreation Center, Cheryl? Right, we had some boundary line changes. We want to reconfigure the boundary line changes, so we're not presenting that today.
All right, so then the one we have been presented is not correct. It's
So,
not
okay.
the most current one.
Okay, so yes, we are not presenting so we will not be presenting 22.21,
Oh, you're going by these.
20.21, and 5.21. Those are the three that will not be up for vote today.
Okay, I'm sorry. So
For
on
approval.
this sheet, we're taking off 5.21. That was also in the individual sheets. 20.21, which was also in the individual sheets. But then there was 21.21 and 22.21 on the spreadsheet.
But if you go by this,
They are not on here?
if you go by the proposal,
Yep,
it's not on there.
I gotcha. Okay. Okay, so,
For clarity, my proposal includes Sandtown.
All right.
This one.
okay, so let's go off the agenda. The agenda list is the one that is in your motion, except for 521, which we're taking out, as well as 2021, which we're taking out, but all the others remain from the agenda list.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. And it was seconded by Ms. Crawford. Is there any further discussion on this? Yeah, Mr. Wingate.
I have one quick question. Nadine, 07D1 is an addition because of the number of vote for Buckhead Library. Is that the way I understand this correctly?
Correct. For Buckhead Library 07D, we are attempting to decrease any precinct that has gone over 5,000 voters. So to decrease the number of people, we wanted to split that and put, it'll be roughly 3,000 in Buckhead Library and another 1,500 in 07D coming out of Buckhead Library.
So 07D1 is a new precinct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm supportive of the motion. I do have a request, however. Since you've already done the analysis, I would ask that you aggregate the demographics on the registered voters so that we have a total of the changes. I would rather us know and not be confronted by any sort of surprise numbers one way or the other on that. Does that make sense?
Yes, I believe the total voter count is on the actual proposal forms that were in the packets of who would be moved.
I see it for each one of the precincts, but I wanted to see what it is when you add them all up.
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
again,
understood.
Yep, I just don't want.
But you'll be reconstituting the overall precinct list, correct? And that will then reflect all of the variations that you've made for these changes, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is the ones that are being changed. I don't want there to be a narrative coming back that, oh, you changed these 20 and it disproportionately did this or that. It deliberately. I know it's not the case, but I just want to make sure we're ahead of that versus behind it.
Okay.
Yep.
And also, I just was told that on the agenda, 2121 is not listed in that, in line item number 8. So we need to add 2121 and remove 2221.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to read the agenda. It says 121, 221, 321, 421, 521 is being struck. 621, all the 621, 821, 921, 1021, 11, 20, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21 are all good. 2021 is being struck. 22, 21 is being struck, but 2021 is being included. 21, correct.
2121,
Yep.
that's correct.
Okay. 21 is good, 2021 is bad.
And that's my motion.
Whew, okay. Right, 3 removals, 1 addition, 1 replacement. Okay, motion is before us, properly seconded. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, that concludes our new business. Colleagues, the next item, if we still want to do, is executive session. It sounded like we had litigation matters to discuss. We also had personnel, potential litigation discussion around the item we mentioned earlier around Happy Faces. So is there any other business we should attend to before we entertain that motion for executive session? All right, Mr. Wingate.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adjourn this part of the regular meeting to go into executive session to return to close out the regular session at the time.
Is there a second for that motion? And then I'll get to your question. All right, I'll second the motion. All right, Ms. Crawford had a question or comment?
I just have a quick question that I missed it. How much does it cost a municipality to run an election? Generally?
$2.96 per registered voter.
$2.96.
And then for the runoff, it's $2.46. The commissioner set that amount in 2019, and I think based on the cost that the county is going to bear, I think we're going to look at that after this year going forward, adjusting that rate.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
We've got right now we have 2 that have already decided they're going to handle their own elections, 2 municipalities. And
Mountain Park and Palmetto are doing their own elections.
Have you provided those municipalities then with a brief or a plan on how you will support them? Because obviously
Cherokee County,
Yes.
they do Mountain Park's election.
Cherokee, okay.
Yeah, that's been.
But for Palmetto?
For Palmetto, we supply them with, they're gonna just do a paper ballot election, is my understanding.
That's correct. Their city is with another county. I think it's called Wheaton. So that's why they have to have that's why they want a separate location for their municipal election. They always conduct their own, because they have 2 counties that feed into their city. So we conduct the county election, they conduct the municipal, that's by their choice.
Right, so they'll conduct it, but you're going to have to support them by providing materials?
Well,
No.
No, they have to get certified by the Secretary of State to have their own election. So they have not access for any equipment, but I believe they go paper ballot for their election, for their municipal election.
So they're self-contained?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions from our just regular business agenda items? If not, there's a motion on the floor to enter an executive session. It's been properly seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. We'll now go into executive session, and then we'll return after that to adjourn the meeting.
Juneteenth replaced Columbus Day.
All right, well, good afternoon now. We are now back from executive session. I want to note the time is 12:35. Colleagues, I need a motion to resume regular session.
I make a motion to resume regular
A
session.
motion from Ms.
Second.
Crawford, seconded by Mr. Johnson. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? That motion carries. We're now back in regular session. Mr. Barron or Ms. Bodison, we do not have any other agenda items or business items to discuss, correct?
No, Chairman.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn
So moved.
by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Ms.
Second.
Crawford. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We stand adjourned, and we'll see everybody in August. Thank you.